I grew up as an Amway kid, and honestly, I loved it. I loved the books, I loved the personal development, I loved the functions, and we didn't go anywhere without a cassette tape playing because their whole thing was books, tapes, and functions. And it really made a huge difference because all of that positive mindset training was going straight into my subconscious, and I was only 11, maybe. So that was programming me from a very young age. I loved the idea and just grew up thinking that ordinary people could create extraordinary lives. And then life took me in a completely different direction later on. So I became fascinated with healing. And actually, as a young child, we had these children's encyclopedias. And the only one that I would actually look at was the medical one. I was fascinated by it, and I would flip through it and I would learn. And so it didn't just come to me as an adult. It was there already. I had both of my grandmothers were nurses, and my uncle was a doctor. My mom's dad was a Native American Indian, and said that there was a medicine man in the lineage. So just a little background on that. So it didn't just come from nowhere. But I became fascinated with consciousness, with plant medicine, with shamanism, and energy work, and then manifestation. And those kind of go all together because the more conscious you become, the more energy work you do, the faster your manifestation happens and your superpowers come on board completely. And so honestly, after the deep dive into all of this, I thought that I had left network marketing behind me. What I didn't realize was that decades later, that I would end up rediscovering many of the same principles through a completely different path. And because after all the healing, all the studying, all the spiritual exploration, I eventually found myself asking practical questions. How do good people, spiritual, in tune people, create financial freedom? Not theoretically, actually. And how do ordinary people build something that compounds over time? These are the questions that I found myself asking. And how do they create income that doesn't completely depend on hours to dollars? Sorry, my cat is wanting to be on film too. How do they build a future when this world feels so uncertain? And that's when I realized that I had come full circle. The lessons learned as a child weren't about products or companies. They were about leverage and community, ownership, personal growth, and something that could outlast your next paycheck. That's when I looked at network marketing completely differently, with new eyes. And what shamanism taught me about money was, for years I believed that money and spirituality lived in completely separate worlds. One was sacred, one was practical, one was consciousness, one was business. Then something interesting happened. The deeper I went into healing, the more I noticed a pattern. Many of the most gifted people I knew were struggling financially. And why was this? It didn't make sense to me that they could be so incredibly powerful and have such an influence on other people, and yet constantly worried how they're going to pay their bills. So they could help transform lives, and they could do it all day long. They could hold beautiful space for people. They could facilitate profound healing and ceremonies, but they were exhausted and they were overwhelmed. They were underpaid and quietly worried about money. And a lot of them, they wouldn't talk about it, but it was something that was so prevalent in their lives that it could become a distraction. And eventually I realized that the problem wasn't spirituality, it was leverage. Many healers have a beautiful mission, and I love all of my friends are incredibly powerful and are amazing, have amazing missions, and they go out into the world and change realities. But what they didn't have was a vehicle capable of carrying that mission further. And I believe that we need these powerful, conscious, spiritual people to have resources. I think that it hurts more people than helps when these spiritual healers are broke. It does no one any good. And I believe that there are no accidents. There is a reason that after growing up in network marketing and then moving on to do deep spiritual work and deep dives into the psyche and coming out the other side and coming full circle back to network marketing, I believe there's a reason for that. There are no accidents. And so now I feel like a bridge between the two worlds. And my mission now is to help as many people as I can possibly help, or I should say, as many people as will let me help them break free financially, because they are already free in every other aspect except that. So I also believe that many, many healers have come here to master money. And that's the reason it has been the biggest struggle of their life. And I'm speaking from what I've learned personally, is that I know that I came here to master money, and I resisted it for so long thinking it wasn't important. And what I have found that, because if you're not free financially, then that's going to be a huge setback, a distraction, and a limitation that is going to keep coming up. And so many of us are here to master money after resisting it most of our lives. And I believe that part of my mission is to help others break free financially. And so